What the hell is this, a napkin? Greg barked when the lawyer placed a crumpled, ketchup-stained square on the table. The room went still, the old chandelier crackled like it was about to object, as if crystals could file emotion. Jessica's eyebrows climbed, high, almost defiant, as if waiting for someone to shout, "Prank." Ron choked on his muffin and blinked like the headlights of a dying pickup. The lawyer cleared his throat, sipped from a flimsy cup, and, with maddening calm, said, "The last will of Mildred Foster." Silence got heavier. The handwriting on the napkin was sharp and certain: house, accounts, porcelain collection, to my friend and neighbor, Earl Henderson. None of us blinked. We just stared, at the lawyer, at the napkin, at each other, each nursing a private panic. Greg's was taxes and a second mortgage. Ron's was the job he'd lost and hadn't mentioned. Mine was the stack of letters I kept tucked under a purse lining, all of them starting with, "We regret to inform you." "This is a fake," Greg thundered. "There has to be a real will. Is there anything else?" Jessica's voice could cut glass. "All I received is this," the lawyer said, shrinking an inch. "Signed, dated." He stopped because something clanged in the kitchen, an old bucket tipping over. We all flinched, like we'd rehearsed it. Earl hung in the air like a pit in the throat. Earl lived over the fence. A veteran, quiet, too polite, the kind of man who replaced a light bulb and refused pie as payment. He'd brought Grandma her milk and papers. Now he was friend, the heir to everything. In the window we caught the ghost of his trailer, sun-faded, crowned with a jazz festival sticker. My fingers buzzed. I wanted to cross the yard and ask what he knew that we didn't. "There's a smear here," Ron said, waving a dish towel and squinting. "Anne, is that 217? Time stamp," the lawyer nodded. "Looks like she wrote this at Benny's diner." "Mildred hasn't been to Benny's in 2 years, Jessica shot back. "Who saw her there?" No one answered. But we all remembered, the week before she died, she stopped taking our calls and phoned Earl instead. Why him? The table smelled like coffee, cinnamon, and old grievances. I lifted the napkin by its corners, like evidence, and saw a faint extra stroke below the last line, half a word cut off. Unless, then a greasy blur. A condition. There had been a condition. "Will contest," Greg declared, scrolling for a lawyer who was somebody's brother-in-law. "First we find out what this is," Jessica said. "I want to see Earl. Now." We glanced outside, his kitchen light flickered. A neighbor's dog barked once and fell quiet. Mrs. Doughty's head popped through the door. "Keep it down," she hissed. "Mildred told me, if there's shouting, open the box in the hall closet." "What box?" we chorused. "Gray shoebox." She said, "They'll understand." The door shut. We were left with the napkin, a nervous lawyer, and our own bad tempers. In the closet, under blankets, we found it, crosswords, a business card with an out-of-state area code, a safety deposit receipt, and a snapshot of Mildred in a diner booth. Across from her, just shoulders, cropped away. On the metal napkin holder, Benny's. On a loyalty card, in her hand, one word, forgiveness. "Who's in the photo?" Ron asked. "We'll find out," Jessica said, her voice finally steady. "But first, Earl." We took the napkin, the box, and our confusion. Somewhere, the bucket fell again. Time seemed to shove us from behind. Outside, the evening air was thick as chowder. In Earl's kitchen window, a shadow moved. I palmed the deposit receipt, dated 3 days before Mildred died. The strange number on the card burned a hole in my pocket. We didn't yet know how many ugly truths were about to surface, or how loudly our beliefs would crack. But one thing was clear, tonight we'd heard only the first sentence of a much longer story. And if the napkin truly held a condition, meeting it wouldn't be up to one of us. It would be all of us, together, or not at all. To Earl. Jessica snapped, and it sounded less like a suggestion and more like a battle command. We marched across the yard carrying the shoebox and the napkin like they were explosives. The air was thick and sticky, even the mosquitoes seemed angrier than usual. Earl's kitchen light flickered, his shadow pacing back and forth. Greg, red-faced with rage, tried to storm ahead, but Jessica grabbed his arm. No stupid moves. If you start yelling, he'll slam the door on us. Door? He robbed us blind. Greg growled. Ron, of course, tried a joke. If he robbed us with a napkin, that's not a crime. That's cartoonish. Nobody laughed. We knocked. The door opened instantly, like he'd been standing right there, waiting. Earl looked exactly the same as always, faded plaid shirt, mug of tea in his hand. But his eyes were different, sharper, as if he'd been expecting a fight. You already know, he said flatly. We froze. Know what? Jessica shot back. That Mildred made her choice. Greg lunged forward, and I caught his shoulder. Choice, he roared. She would never do this. You tricked her. You. Earl set his mug on the sill and pointed to the table. On it lay a cassette tape. A real, old-fashioned audio cassette labeled M.F. 2023. She left this with me. Told me, when they find the napkin, give them the tape. We stared. The tape looked like it could hold either the truth or the biggest con of our lives. Jessica reached for it, but Earl pulled it back. Only if you promise to listen. To the end. No shouting. Greg opened his mouth, but Ron beat him to it. Deal. Earl dug an ancient tape deck out of the closet. When the reels began to turn, Grandma Mildred's voice filled the room, hoarse, steady, unshakable. If you're listening, you found my will, and you're probably fighting already. I know you. I watched you claw at each other your whole lives, not for love, but for scraps. Jessica's eyes squeezed shut. Greg rubbed his forehead like sandpaper. Her voice went on. I left everything to Earl not for the things, but for the lesson. He was the only one who came without asking. But if you can see what truly matters, you'll find another key. Because my real will is not on a napkin. The tape clicked off. Silence. Then Ron whispered. Well, hell. We've got ourselves a scavenger hunt. And it did feel like that, napkin, shoebox, cassette. But instead of excitement, it felt like a minefield. Every word she'd left was a trap disguised as a clue. What does she mean, another key? Jessica muttered. The bank, Earl said. She told me to hold the receipt. Safety deposit box. But I can't go there. That's for you. He slid the slip of paper across the table. Greg snatched it like it was a winning lottery ticket. Perfect. Tomorrow morning, we go. No, Jessica cut him off. We go now. We all stared. Midnight. Banks closed. But she was already on her feet. If we wait, we lose. Grandma planned this. She always planned. And if we stall, she wins. At the door, Ron muttered, what if the deposit box just has another napkin? For the first time that night, nobody laughed. You're insane. At night? To a bank? Greg snapped, but Jessica was already zipping her jacket. You really think Grandma gave us time to sit around? She always made us scramble like chickens. Why should death change that? We piled into Ron's battered minivan, which smelled like old coffee and pizza. Rain hammered the windshield, headlights smeared across the wet pavement. The road felt endless, the silence heavier than the storm. Then Jessica's phone rang. Unknown number. She put it on speaker. You're looking for the box, a man's voice said. We froze. Who is this? Jessica shot back. Say the code. If you're Mildred's family, you know the code. What code? Greg barked, but the line clicked dead. Ron muttered, great. Now we've got a phone scavenger hunt. But Jessica wasn't laughing. She stared at the deposit slip. At the bottom, almost scratched in under the stamp, was the number, 317. When we reached the bank, it was dark, closed. Except the front lights glowed. Someone was inside. Perfect, Greg groaned. We're going to jail. Excellent plan, Jess. But the doors opened. A guard stood there, tall, thin, hands folded. He looked at us like he'd been expecting company. You're the Foster family? Yes, Jessica said before we could agree otherwise. He nodded and led us down the hallway. The corridors were dim, bulbs flickering. He stopped at a door and gestured to a safety deposit box, 317. Just as the slip said. But when Jessica held it out, the guard raised a hand. Only one of you can open it. And the choice has to be now. We froze. Greg immediately lunged. I'm the eldest, I'll do it. No. Jessica shoved him back. Grandma tested us. If you go first, it's because she knew you couldn't handle it. Oh, and you could, he barked. Ron lifted a hand. Why not me? I was always the family's nobody. Guess that makes me the perfect candidate. Before we could argue, he handed the slip to the guard. The man nodded, unlocked the box. Inside wasn't money. Not documents. Just an envelope. Thin, yellowed, scrawled, for Ron only. Oh, Ron muttered. He opened it. Inside was a check, for exactly $1. And a note, Ron, if you're reading this, it means you finally took responsibility for something. Start small. Greg exploded. We dragged ourselves here for $1. This is a joke. But Jessica was eyeing the box carefully. She tapped the bottom. Hollow. This isn't over, she said. And right then, the guard reappeared. This time holding a phone. On its screen was a photo, Grandma Mildred, standing beside a man in uniform. You should know, he said softly, she wasn't the woman you thought she was. Before we could respond, the lights flickered and cut out. We were left in darkness, $1, one box, and a whole new set of secrets waiting to crack open. The darkness dropped like a piano lid. Someone gasped, I think it was me. Somewhere down the hall, a lock clicked. The door had sealed shut. Well, that's it, Ron muttered. Our quest just turned into bank survival. Quiet. Jessica hissed, flicking on her phone flashlight. The beam lit Greg's face, red, sweaty, wild-eyed, ready to rip the vault apart with his bare hands. Sure enough, the bottom of the box had a seam. Jessica traced it with a fingernail. Hollow. We scrambled, looking for a latch, until Ron, of course, yanked the wrong piece. A thin folder slid out. We lunged for it, but Jessica snatched it first. On the cover, one word, Henderson. Earl. Greg shouted. He lunged at her, but Jessica held it high. Don't. This might be the clue. Clue. It's proof. He conned us. We opened it. Inside were old photographs, Grandma Mildred with a man in uniform. Earl. Younger, smiling, at a picnic, at a dance, even at Benny's diner. He was more than a neighbor, Jessica whispered. Or maybe he was Grandpa, Ron blurted, and the silence that followed was suffocating. If Earl wasn't just some kind neighbor but part of our bloodline, what did that mean for us? But before we could answer, the door swung open. Lights buzzed back on. The guard stood there, hands in his pockets. Find what you were looking for, he asked, voice strangely even. What do you know about Earl? Jessica snapped. He shrugged. Only that Mildred always paid for this box in cash. And that she once told me, when they discover the truth, it'll already be too late. What does that mean? Greg barked. But the guard turned and walked away. We rifled through the folder again. Along with the photos was a brittle receipt. Name, Henderson, year, 1974. And in the margin, scribbled in handwriting eerily like Grandma's, "Don't tell the children." So now we've got family secrets. Ron muttered. You know what bugs me most? She's still pulling our strings from the grave. Maybe that was the point, Jessica said, staring at the photo of Mildred laughing against a young Earl. To make us face the truth. Greg slammed his fist against the safe. I'm done with games. Tomorrow, I'm going straight to Earl. And I'll get answers, one way or another. Don't, I said. If he's part of this, he knows more than we do. Push too hard and he'll shut down. Jessica's eyes lingered on that photo, Grandma, smiling, leaning against Earl. Or maybe, she whispered, he's the key. But to what? We left the bank in silence. Wind snatched Ron's $1 check from his hands, he chased it down the sidewalk, cursing the universe. We laughed, but it was thin, brittle laughter, like people standing at the edge of a cliff. Ahead lay our talk with Earl. And now we knew, it wouldn't just decide an inheritance. It would rewrite who we thought we were. We got home at 2 a.m, exhausted, hungry, and our heads jammed with more questions than answers. The living room was silent until Ron stepped on a loose floorboard that snapped like a gunshot. He lost his balance and crashed right into a box of Grandma's porcelain. Well, he groaned, pulling a broken rosebud from his hair, guess I just inherited the china set. Jessica set the photo of Earl on the mantel and sat down, her eyes sharp as knives. We can't just storm over there. Earl knows something we don't. And he's playing a game. A game? He's just an old scam artist. Greg barked, nearly knocking over the lamp. Tomorrow I'll go and squeeze the truth out of him. He may be old, but he won't fool me. Greg, I said, what exactly are you going to do? Knock on the door and say, hi, you might be our grandfather or maybe just a fraud, pick one, 5 seconds. Yeah, that'll go well. Ron snorted, but cut it off fast when Jessica gave him a look sharp enough to peel paint. Jessica pulled another overlooked item from the shoebox, a small notebook. The first page was harmless, milk, bread, blood pressure pills. But the rest? Notes, Benny's, every Wednesday, 6 p.m., meeting with H. H, Jessica murmured. Henderson. Earl. We leaned over the notebook. Page after page of cryptic lines, talk about the condition. Hide in the box. Don't tell the kids. I always knew I was the least favorite, Ron muttered. Didn't realize it was in writing. Shut up, Greg growled. This is serious. Then came a knock at the door. We all froze. It's him, Jessica whispered. He knows we found the folder. The knock came again. Greg stormed to the door and yanked it open, only to find the mailman. At 3 a.m. Sorry for the hour, the man said sleepily. I was told to deliver this personally. Said it couldn't wait. In his hand was an envelope, no return address. On the front, 2 words, you're late. We stared. Jessica snatched it, tore it open. Inside was another photograph. Grandma Mildred again, older now, sitting at a booth in Benny's. She was holding someone's hand. The other person's face was scribbled out with thick black ink. Oh, come on, Ron groaned. She really planned for us to lose our minds. She did, Jessica said flatly. That was the plan. Greg, meanwhile, was jabbing at his phone. I don't care. Tomorrow I'm going to Earl. He explains, or Or what? Ron cut in. You challenge him to a duel. He laughed. Honestly, might as well. Families settle worse with less. The laughter faded fast, though, because we all knew, the coming conversation with Earl wouldn't just decide the inheritance. It would change who we thought we were. On the table lay three things: the napkin, the cassette, the new photo. We sat around them like players in a game whose rules Grandma had written. And the worst part? She always won. Morning came with the smell of coffee and nerves. Nobody had slept much. Greg tossed and turned like he had a hedgehog under his pillow. Jessica pored over Grandma's notebook until dawn. Ron snored on the couch clutching the photo box like a teddy bear. Greg spoke first. Today we go to Earl. No more waiting. He's sitting there laughing at us. Or crying, Ron yawned. Who knows what's in his heart? Yeah. I care more about what's in his closet. Greg snapped. Jessica cut him off. Stop. We still haven't figured out that phone call. Remember? Part 3, say the code. She held up the deposit slip, 317. This is more than just a box. As if on cue, the phone rang. Same unknown number. We froze. Jessica answered. The code? The man's voice asked again. 317, she said firmly. A pause. Then a short laugh. Good. Then you're ready for the next step. Who are you? Jessica demanded. The line went dead. Fantastic, Ron muttered. Now it's officially a scavenger hunt. Next step. What are we on, Bank, Season 2? Or a trap, Greg growled. And then, another knock. The mailman. Again. Same guy, looking even more exhausted, holding yet another envelope. Sorry. They told me I have to deliver all of them, even if it means every hour. On the front, the real answer isn't in the bank. Inside, another photograph. Grandma Mildred, about 20 years younger, sitting in the same booth at Benny's. Beside her, a man in uniform. This time his face wasn't scribbled out. But the picture was ripped clean in half. Oh great, Ron sighed. We're assembling Grandma's love life jigsaw puzzle. What's next, a ketchup-stained menu? Shut up, Jessica snapped. That's the same man from the guard's phone photo. He was with her even then. Greg couldn't hold it in anymore. That's it. I'm going to Earl. He's either our neighbor, our grandpa, or the star of Grandma's soap opera, but I'm getting answers. We marched across the yard. Strangely quiet. Even the neighbor's dog didn't bark. Earl's trailer light was on, but when we knocked, nothing. Greg swore and moved to kick the door, but Jessica grabbed him. Look. Under the doormat was a key. And another envelope. We opened it. Inside, a note. If you're reading this, I'm already ahead. Find me where it all began. Benny's, Ron whispered. And the name hit us all like a chill. Because we finally realized, Grandma hadn't just left an inheritance. She'd left a trail. And we were only a few steps in. The drive to Benny's diner felt like a bad dream. Ron wrestled with the wheel of his beat-up minivan, which bounced over every pothole like it was trying to escape us. Jessica clutched Grandma's notebook, reading aloud and underlining, Wednesday. 6 p.m., meeting with H. What day is it today? I asked. Wednesday. And it's 6 in 10 minutes. We looked at each other. It felt like Mildred was up in the clouds, laughing at the chaos she'd set in motion. Benny's greeted us with a half-dead neon sign. The N had gone out, so the place now read B New York's, like the diner itself had given up. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and bacon grease. Behind the counter stood a waitress named Linda, staring at us like we were late to our own funeral. "You're the Foster family?" she asked, not even pretending it was a guess. "What's it to you?" Greg shot back. "Then sit at the booth in the corner," Linda said calmly. She reserved it. Every Wednesday. We slid into the cracked vinyl booth. On the table sat an old napkin holder, logo faded. Beneath it, an envelope. And a receipt for coffee and pie. Dated today. "She's haunting us even after death," Ron muttered. "And making us pay for pie." Greg tore open the envelope. Inside was a key. And one line, "Ask Linda. She knows more than she says." We rushed back to the counter. "Linda, what does this mean?" Jessica showed her the key. The waitress wiped her hands on her apron and gave us a look like she'd been waiting for this. "She left me a package. Said, give it to them when they ask themselves." Linda disappeared into the kitchen and came back with a taped-up box. We ripped it open right there, between the smell of fries and the roar of a baseball game on the TV. Inside, stacks of letters. All addressed to Earl. Dozens, maybe hundreds, written by Grandma over the years. "Well, the love letters of the century," Ron smirked. "Meanwhile, we can't even text back." Jessica opened one and read aloud. "Earl, you were the only one who listened. I don't regret the path I chose." Her voice shook. We all went quiet. Then we found one that was different. Short, no date. Just one chilling line. "They will never forgive the truth. But better they hate me than you." "Now that's interesting," I whispered. Greg slammed his fist on the table. "Enough. We're taking these to Earl. And he's explaining everything." We were heading for the door when Linda called after us. "And one more thing." She always ordered 2 slices of pie. One for herself. One for him. But, he never came. We froze. "Him who?" Jessica asked. Linda shrugged. She never said. Just left the second slice untouched. Every time. Outside, the wind slapped us in the face. We held a key, a box of letters, and more questions than ever. Ron looked at us and said, "You know what's worse than inheriting Grandma's money? Inheriting her lies." We came back from Benny's feeling like we'd just gone 12 rounds in a boxing ring, bruised, exhausted, and carrying more questions than we left with. The box of letters sat on the table, dangerous as dynamite. No one wanted to touch it first. "All right," Jessica began, her tone sharp. "We know Grandma and Earl were close. But who was the other one, the pie guy? And what did that line mean, 'Better they hate me than you'?" "It means she was hiding something," I muttered. "She hid everything." Greg exploded. "First the napkin, then the cassette, now these cursed love letters. What's next, that she won Dad in a poker game?" Ron snorted, then leaned over one letter, raising an eyebrow. "Listen to this one, if the children learn the truth, they'll destroy themselves. You must stay silent, Earl." "The truth about what?" Jessica whispered. We read until dawn. The deeper we dug, the stranger it got. Over and over, certain lines repeated, "The bank is only the first step." And, "Don't let them look deeper into the box." She knew we'd find the false bottom. Ron gasped. She was trolling us. "You think Grandma was a troll?" Greg shot back. "She couldn't even use a computer." "Exactly. That means she invented trolling before the internet." But the laughs died when Jessica pulled out an envelope addressed to someone else entirely. Not Foster. Not Henderson. It read, "To Mr. Collins. Personal." "Who the hell is Collins?" Jessica asked. "Another boyfriend?" Ron grinned. "Or maybe he was the pie guy," I said. Greg looked like his head would explode. "Perfect. Another player." Why not? Soon we'll find out the whole damn town was in Grandma's soap opera. And then, the inevitable knock. We all groaned in unison. Not the mailman again. But it wasn't. On the porch stood Mrs. Doughty from down the street. In her hands, yet another envelope. "Sorry to bother you so late," she said. "But Mildred left this with me. Told me to give it to you only when you start arguing among yourselves." "We're not arguing," Ron said indignantly. "You literally just called her a troll," Jessica shot back. Mrs. Doughty set the envelope down and left without another word. We tore it open. Inside was a list. Just a list, names, dates, places. At the bottom, Grandma's handwriting, "It all began in 1974. They need to know the truth." We all exchanged looks. It was the same year as the deposit slip from the safe. "So there it is," Jessica said grimly. "That's the core. Everything points back to 1974. Crack that, and we'll crack her game." But answers? We had none. Only more questions. And the biggest of them all, what on earth had happened in 1974 that Grandma built her entire twisted treasure hunt around it? The list from the envelope lay in front of us like a minefield, names, dates, places. And at the bottom, 1974. That year glowed in our heads like a warning light. "I was born in 1976, Greg muttered, "Mildred's son, so officially I'm in the clear." "Yeah, right," Ron snorted. "Maybe you got one in a poker game too." Jessica ignored them, rifling through the papers. "Here, Memphis. March 1974. Henderson, Collins, and another woman. Can't read the name." "Then we go to Memphis," she said, "no room for argument." "Oh, great. Family road trip. Us, a box of love letters, and Grandma's curse." Ron clapped his hands. "Maybe we'll even meet Elvis. Except, wait, wrong year. He was busy dying." Greg slammed his fist on the table. "Enough jokes. This is serious. She hid something there. And if we don't find out, we'll never know why she staged this whole circus." So off we went. Ron's minivan rattled like a tin can over every pothole, silence hanging heavier than seatbelts. Only once did Jessica speak. "I think Collins is the key. He wasn't just some name on a list. He was there. In 74. With Earl. And Grandma knew them both." We hit Memphis by nightfall. First stop, the city archive, a building that looked one thunderstorm away from collapse. Inside, a sleepy clerk stared at us like we'd wandered in to order pizza. "We need records from 1974, Jessica said. "What kind?" "All of it," Ron answered. 2 hours later, we found it. A yellowed newspaper. Headline, "Memphis Scandal, 2 men arrested for forgery." The names, Henderson and Collins. "Oh, damn," I breathed. "Earl." Greg's face turned crimson. "He went to jail. And Grandma knew. But there was another name. A woman. Listed as a witness." We all read it at once, and the room went silent. Mildred Foster. "Our grandmother was right in the middle of the scandal," Jessica said coldly. "She lied to us. Our whole lives." Ron leaned back from the paper. "Okay, but look on the bright side." "What bright side?" Greg barked. "Well, it explains why her lemonade was so good. She always knew how to add a splash of crime to anything." We sat there in the archive, staring at each other across stacks of dusty files. Questions piled higher than the papers. Why was she a witness? Why leave all these breadcrumbs? And why, always, 1974? Jessica folded the newspaper. "This isn't the answer. But we're close. So close. And once we get the truth, there's no going back. We stepped outside. Memphis glowed with neon and streetlights. But to us, the night felt darker than ever. The ending was coming, we could feel it. And only Ron, wiping his hands with a Benny's napkin, muttered. If the big reveal is just another napkin, I swear I'm out of the will. We came back from the archive shattered, but with the biggest truth in our hands. The newspaper from 1974 made it clear, Earl and Collins were part of the forgery scandal. And Mildred Foster, our grandmother, was the witness who saved Earl from prison. At home, we laid everything out on the table, the napkin, the cassette, the photo, the letters, the list, the newspaper. And in the middle, her note, better they hate me than you. Jessica broke the silence. She gave everything to Earl not because she loved him more. She knew he was the only one she could save. Just then, the door creaked open. And there he was, Earl. Old, bent with years, but carrying the same gravity we'd felt in every one of her letters. She wanted me to come only when you were ready, he said quietly. Then he placed a folder on the table. Inside was an addendum to the will. It read, Earl is only the caretaker of my estate. The true heirs are my children and grandchildren. All of it belongs to them. But they must understand the most important thing, family is worth more than anything. We sat stunned. Earl lowered his head. She made me promise never to speak until you discovered the truth yourselves. And you should also know, those 2 slices of pie at Benny's. One was for her. The other, was never for me. She saved it for Collins. She waited years, hoping one day he would show up and say, I'm sorry. But he never did. Jessica began to cry. Greg clenched his fists. Ron muttered. Stubborn as hell, waiting with pie of all things. Earl gave a sad smile. Yes. But in the end, she knew forgiveness wasn't coming. That's why she left it all to you. So you wouldn't repeat her mistake. We sat in silence, each of us carrying the weight of her choices. And slowly, we realized, the inheritance wasn't just the house or the money. It was the lesson. She showed us that real wealth is having the courage to love, even when love betrays you. Greg lifted his glass of lemonade. To Mildred. A woman who gave everything, so we could have each other. We raised our glasses. The old chandelier above us flickered, glowing brighter than ever. Almost as if she herself winked from above. Well done, kids. You finally got it. And of course, Ron couldn't resist. Wiping his eyes with a Benny's napkin, he said. Okay. We got the house, the money, and a crash course in family values. Earl got our forgiveness. Grandma got her peace. But seriously, who's paying for that damn pie at Benny's now? We laughed through the tears. And in that laughter, we knew, she had given us the greatest inheritance of all, the ability to laugh even when it hurts. And now, my friends, let me ask you. Would you have made it this far chasing a ketchup-stained napkin? Would you have the guts to dig into secrets this heavy, knowing they could change everything you believed about your family? Because here's the truth, money, houses, pies, they come and go. But the courage to face the past together, and still raise a glass with the people you love. That's the only inheritance that matters.